All right, we have a lawyer, Ikeji, in the studio with us. And, of course, joining us from Abuja is a senior special assistant to the president on social investment programs, Barrister Ismail Ahmed. Good morning, gentlemen. Good to see you on the show.
Good morning for having
You're
me.
welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you. All right, let me start with you, Ikechukwu, in the studio before we go to Abuja. Now, a situation where a forum like this, where the president interfaces with leaders, is what people have been calling for all the while. The moment if there's an engagement on negotiation, we shouldn't even be talking about agitations on the street in the first place. Now that this has started this way, is this going to bring succor and final solution to the issues in the East?
No,
Is
no,
that
no,
what we
no,
should
no,
expect?
no,
Okay.
it will not. Okay. It's just a bridge building. I like the phrase used by Ngozi, shopping list. Yes, the Southeast leaders took a shopping list to the president, and like in all lists, you remember when you were in secondary school, you take your shopping list to your daddy. Somehow he marks, ticks, crosses some, and gives you some.
Scale of preference.
Scale of preference.
Opportunity cost and all of that. Yeah.
So I think that would apply in this case. I think that the president would do well to look into some of those items on the shopping list. But most importantly, I think as an Igbo man that the leaders are somewhat removed, if that is the word, from the masses.
Disconnected.
They are disconnected, that is the word, from the masses in the Southeast. They are too much of politicians. They play too much politics, and sometimes it muddles up the water of good governance that would benefit the people. Having said that, the bridge building is always good. Negotiation, dialogue, discussions are always good. The issues raised are germane, but there are better issues. For example, the issue of changing the structure of Nigeria, looking more deeply into the structure of Nigeria. I think it is not the president's fault that some of these facilities or infrastructures are dilapidated or are not available. Yeah. It is just the structure. It's the problem of the structure. If the structures are well taken care of, it will not be too much of a problem. And if we have good leadership in place, it will not be too much of a problem for some of these structures to be well taken care of. The second Niger Bridge, the airport, the dredging of River Niger, the coastal railway, and all the roads across the southeastern area are bad.
All right, let's bring in Ismail Ahmed, SSA2 President on Social Investment Program. Of course, it's good to have you. Now, President Buhari came out of this meeting with Ezendimo, the ohaneze, and of course, Igbo leaders, including governors, saying that he actually has been fair to the Southeast under his administration, listing some 4 positions that have gone to, citizens from the Southeast. If that were the case, are we saying then that the Southeasterners have only been imagining, or they have a perception problem when it comes to marginalization?
Well, good morning. Well, I think in the politics, in a developing democracy like our own, and where we have diversity, unfortunately, the politics of identity seems to be a moving factor, and perception is almost everything in politics. But what I can tell you for free is that this president and his vice and this administration in its entirety has never set out to do anything against any part of this country or any ethnic group or any religion or anything. It's been totally fair and tried to be fair. Well, of course, there will be, it's absolutely legitimate for certain parts of the country or for anyone, be it a young person against an old person, be it a woman against a man, be it one region against another, feeling as if they need to make their demands known through legitimate means by sitting with the president and bringing a shopping list. That's absolutely valid and absolutely legitimate. But I don't think there's been any deliberate effort or any deliberate attempt by this administration to marginalize any group. And I think it's only fair for the group as well that if there's a perception that things are going awry, that they should bring that to the attention of the administration. I think that is what has happened in the meeting. And the president and his vice will look at all the shopping lists and make a redress where there is need for that.
All right. Let me stay with you a little, Ismail. We got assurances from the president. From the reports we got, he was assuring of the roads. It was assuring of the second Niger Bridge. It was assuring of the coastal rail project in the east and all of, and even and many more. Are there time frames as to when these things will commence? Was that mentioned at the course of the meeting so that everybody knows, they can lay hold to the fact that by so time this should commence and all of that?
Well, I think a lot of projects have already commenced in the East from the beginning of the administration. I don't think it's something that's about to be commenced. Most of the things that have not started yet are things that are already in the pipeline. These are not things that are coming out as a result of the meeting. But like I said, perception is everything in politics, and there's nothing wrong with them driving home their point that, hey, we want this done. And as long as it is based on issues, not on sensational sentiment, that's absolutely fine. But most of these things are things that have commenced, and they are going to be done within the time frame that normal constructions or projects are being done in this country, especially because you know, the paucity of funds, but we are going to prioritize them to make sure that these are very important roads and very important bridges that needs to be built. And I remember the first place that the president visited, of course, well, it wasn't the southeast, but the first state visit the president made personally himself was in Cross River State. And, you know, it was to open a road. So the president has been in constant communication with governors and leaders of different zones and different states, making sure that he is acceding to most of their demands, especially in giving them loans to be able to pay back salaries to their civil servants, and be able to make sure that they are prioritizing important roles that are economically viable. These are things that have been happening, and the president never discriminated against a PDP state, an APC state, a Southeast state, or Northeast state. He has never been discriminatory in that regard. So I am sure from the assurances that came out from the meeting that some of these projects that have not commenced will commence as soon as possible, and it will be done timely, God willing.
All right, speaking of time, of course, the president has asked for more time to look at these issues holistically. I wonder what meaning Ikechukwu would read into that. But let's look at some of the appointments which President Buhari says prove that he has been fair to the Southeast. Foreign Affairs, which he says he cannot take any decisions on the foreign front, you know, without consulting
with their
them,
son.
with their, you know, trade and investment, labor, science and technology. Some would say, look, these are not juicy positions
that's usually the problem.
By Nigerian standards.
It's playing on the intelligence of the common man or the common person, the sensibilities and sensitivities of an ordinary person, an ordinarily intelligent person, to say that you've given a region 4 ministerial slots, juicy as it were, that you've actually carried them along. Ministerial slots are constitutional. And in the Constitution, there's no difference between Minister of State and Minister of Minister.
So what more could Buhari have done to prove
beyond
that
what
really
the Constitution...
he is a president for everybody?
Thank you so much for that question. Beyond ministerial appointments, which he has no choice in anyway, there are other appointments that he has choices to make. Those appointments need not conform with federal character. Let me give you an example. During the discussion on whether there is need for Operation Python dance, as it were, or how to quell the self-determination agitations in the Southeast, there was no single Southeastern military man or security man in the meeting. Live through the Security Council of Nigeria, there's no single Southeastern man there. That is, simply speaking, marginalization. that is where, when you are discussing something concerning a people, nobody from that area is present. An expert from that area is present to at least give you perspectives.
Does that undermine the fact that the military doesn't understand the terrain or don't know the terrain if they don't have a son from that place?
Absolutely, yes. It does even underline, I think the word should be underline the fact that the military does not have the knowledge of the terrain. For example, they said they were riding freely along the road, and youths accosted them and started throwing stones at them. They were driving in the hinterlands. If you are used to Igbo land, death tracks, roads that are off major roads. Those were the places where they were going. Now, I have nothing against what the military intends or wants to do in carrying out its constitutional rules. But I am saying that if the president would come and say that he has been fair in his appointments, we also would also give him some other statistics, some facts, to show that he has not been fair. His statements were very clear when he started, when he said 97%, 5%, and that he can't do what he should do for that 7% who voted for him and did 5% and used it for the 5% who didn't vote for him. And all true. And I'm not against it. No matter what happens, this is a Nigeria that we all belong to, that we must all join hands to ensure that there is justice, equity. But you do not come out and say that you are doing something when we all know and clearly seeing it that it is not working. There are also other examples.
Yes.
If you look at the recent NNPC senior managerial appointments, that even Dr. Ibe Kachuku raised objections about how the appointments were made, you will realize that there was no Southeasterner there in that appointment. I'm not saying that perhaps they should get someone below the ladder who is not yet ripe for that position, but there should be that element of a sense of belonging given to a group of people. And when they say that there is such marginalization, accept it and do not play politics with it.
Oh, okay. Well, a lot of people will still argue because in the last dispensation of Goodluck Jonathan, so many, in fact, it was like per capita, the East really benefited.
They had Amici, Ejirika there. We spoke against it then. Nothing should also stop us from thinking against it now.
All right, let's go to Abuja now. We still have Ismail Ahmed joining us right there. Now, this question of marginalization, in fact, every government that comes to play, there are people who always say they're being marginalized. This question arose even when former President Olusegun Obasanjo was there. Sections of the country said they were marginalized. When Goodluck was there, they said they were marginalized. Even during late President Yaradua. Now, is the president doing anything to ensure that Nigerians really feel the sense of belonging from everywhere? Because we were talking about this issue of marginalization earlier on, and in fact, our guest here said that the president is the president of all. Are there any efforts to ensure that everyone feels a sense of belonging so there's no disconnect?
Absolutely, I think so. And you said, and like I said earlier, you know, in a diverse country as ours, in a country where government seems to be the only source of revenue for a lot of people, and because of the scarcity of that revenue, or because of the scarcity of that wealth, it is normally usual, very usual for people to claim marginalization and eat off it. But that is not to say that it doesn't happen, and that the perception of it is not pervasive in several governments before. And so I think the president and his vice, what they have been able to do, albeit still seen in some quarters as unsuccessful, is to create this, to enthrone this meritocracy. And I can tell you for a fact that there are a lot of people who are from either the northern part of the country or the southwestern part of the country, who are also claiming marginalization, who are members of the APC. They're saying that this is a government that has marginalized the very people that brought it to government, and then has enthroned people who were previously appointed by the former administration. We have seen a lot of reappointments by the president of appointees of former President Goodluck Jonathan. We have seen people who have been left in office, and some people have been grumbling about it. who are not necessarily from Nigeria, from the northern part of the country or from the southwestern part of the country. But I'm not saying that there is no valid concern for people if there is a perception of marginalization. What I'm telling you for a fact is that because people are used to this accusatorial way of doing things, this government is making sure that it has enthroned some sort of meritocracy and equity and fairness. It will still be seen as if there will be marginalization because we have not gotten the attitude right yet.
Okay.
But it's something that we are working on.
All right.
Okay,
so attitude change is where we need to fix it. If we can't stop the stealing, there'll be enough funds to take care of projects across the country. That is what President Buhari has said concerning this issue of marginalization or not. Ismail Ahmed, SSA to President Buhari on Social Investment Program. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, Dr. Ikechukwu.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Most obliged.
Thank you.